was halfway through the slide. The man then noticed something was wrong. He quickly grabbed the cable, but it was already too late. The man was hanging in the air. He quickly hooked his legs around the cable, trying to share the weight with his hands, but at a height of 100 meters. It was obvious that the man couldn't hold on for long. Fortunately, the safety officer came to his side along the cable. The safety officer told the man to lower his feet first. Then he hugged the safety officer with his legs. Fortunately, he managed to hold on without any danger. They slowly slid towards the end along the cable, but they hadn't slid far. Unfortunately, the man couldn't hold on any longer. The man's wife saw this scene. She quickly asked the staff nearby to call an ambulance. She rushed towards the place where her husband had fallen. Using the steel lock as a reference, the woman quickly found her seriously injured of the man who had fallen and been sent in, so she had to go to the police station for help. But when the police took her to the scene of the incident, the staff said they didn't know her. This really angered the woman. Seeing that the staff was lying, she directly hung the safety rope around the staff member. Then she jumped and slid down. When they were halfway down, the woman immediately questioned the staff. Where on earth was her husband?
What happened to my husband?
I don't know, lady.
You want to try?
The staff was completely terrified. He had to tell everything. It turned out that he had been instructed by the gangsters to damage the safety rope. He didn't know anything else. The ambulance was arranged by the gangsters. The woman immediately handed the video to the police chief. She thought the police chief would help her. The next second, the police came and tried to arrest her. But there were too many people in the police station. The woman was finally subdued. The police chief suspected her of murdering the man, but since the woman was a tourist from out of town, the police were specially sent to deport her back to her home country in order to find her husband. The woman lied that she needed to use the toilet, but as soon as she got to the bathroom, the woman easily escaped. Then she jumped from the boat and quickly swam towards the shore. After she got back to the shore, the woman realized that she could only find her husband by herself, so she started asking around. Finally, she found a suspicious person, and this person was the previous ambulance worker. She quietly followed behind. When the other person entered the abandoned warehouse, the woman immediately followed. However, she accidentally killed someone and was caught by the police chief and taken back to the police station. Could the woman successfully find her husband? The man drew his knife, sliced open the seal's belly, then placed his frozen right foot inside. Once feeling returned to his foot, he tore his shirt into strips, soaked them in boiling animal fat, and wrapped them around his foot to treat the frostbite. John had ventured into the harsh Arctic to escape his pursuers, desperate to reunite with his wife and daughter. But after 2 months on the run, he still hadn't found his way out. On the vast snowfields, he couldn't tell north from south. Even his compass had stopped working. John didn't know how much longer he could last. Just as despair overwhelmed him, a miracle occurred. A small tree appeared in the snow ahead. John collapsed in the snow, trembling. When he regained his composure, he approached it, embracing the tree with excitement. He finally saw hope for survival. Where there was one tree, a forest couldn't be far. Sure enough, John soon discovered a woodland ahead. That night, he built a campfire in the forest and lay down to rest beside it. As he fell into deep sleep, bird calls suddenly woke him. He opened his eyes to find 2 men standing over him. John jumped up immediately, frantically raising his gun, warning them not to move. While John stood uncertain, one man explained they meant no harm. If they'd wanted to kill him, they would have done so already. They were just gold prospectors passing by, who had noticed the firelight and came to investigate. But John remained suspicious. Still a fugitive, he couldn't trust strangers easily. They warned him of an approaching blizzard at dawn, and invited him to shelter in their cabin. John flatly refused their offer, and ordered them to leave. Seeing his determination, they departed. The next day, the blizzard arrived as predicted. Each step became a struggle for John, as even large trees were uprooted by the violent winds. Unfortunately, one such tree crashed down on him. Luckily, the 2 men from the night before found him. They rescued John and traveled together, eventually boarding a wooden raft to float downstream. Just as they were celebrating their progress, turbulent rapids appeared ahead. The raft careened out of control in the rushing current. One man accidentally fell into the river, striking his head against a rock. John jumped in to rescue him, while the other companion suddenly steered the raft away, abandoning them. Miraculously, they were washed ashore, narrowly escaping death. Both men lay on the rocks, gasping for air. Meanwhile, the man's companion returned to the cabin. He quickly located the man's gold, and planned to keep it all for himself. By nightfall, the exhausted pair made it back to the cabin. The man immediately checked his pack. Though he noticed something amiss, he said nothing. When his companion wasn't looking, he shot him dead. The man's actions left John deeply disappointed. He never expected him to murder his own partner, but to survive. John felt he had no choice but to continue following the man. Would the man kill John next? The man's face was covered in sand and dirt, but he dared not wipe it away. He even breathed carefully, because behind him was a sheer cliff. One slip would mean certain death. Despite gripping the ground with all his strength, the vertical precipice couldn't support his weight. On the verge of falling, Jack desperately clawed at the sandy soil and spread his legs apart. His body finally stopped sliding, but his strength was limited. If he continued like this, he couldn't hold on for long, and death awaited him. Suddenly, Jack's phone rang from inside his backpack, giving him a spark of hope. He decided to reach for the pack behind him. The moment his hand left the ground, his body began sliding rapidly. He had to dig his fingers back in and press his face against the ground until he stabilized. Then he slowly reached for his backpack, carefully pulling the zipper. His hand successfully slipped inside, but a second later he was forced to abandon the attempt and flatten himself against the ground, though it barely helped. About to fall over the edge, Jack desperately grabbed the cliff's edge. Terrified, he didn't dare move, fearing any wrong motion would send him plummeting. The sound of crashing waves reached him from below. A bold idea formed in his mind when he noticed the waves hit consistently every 80 seconds. Realizing this might be his only chance for survival, Jack counted to 80 and then jumped. Fortunately, he landed in the sea. Though the powerful impact struck his waist, Jack had no time for pain. He swam desperately toward the surface. As his head broke through the water, Jack thought he was saved and quickly crawled onto nearby rocks. However, when he tried to stand, he collapsed unconscious. The waves splashed against his face and eventually revived him. He discovered blood flowing from his waist and realized he might have fractured it. He tried shouting for help, hoping to attract attention, but across the vast, empty seascape, no one could hear him. To survive, he removed his shirt to bandage his wounded hand. He scanned his surroundings for any means of rescue. Looking behind him, Jack suddenly spotted a small island in the distance. Immediately, he shouldered his backpack and dragged his severely injured body back into the sea, desperately paddling with one arm. However, before he'd gone far, intense pain shot through his waist, causing his arm to cramp, but Jack wasn't ready to die. He frantically swam upward, using buoyancy to keep his body afloat. With his arm cramping, he could only let the waves carry his body. Soon, the currents washed him ashore. Jack never imagined that a simple surfing trip would end with him falling off a cliff. By now, he had been stranded for 24 hours, clinging to his last hope. He wrote an SOS signal in the sand, praying someone would notice it. Would Jack be rescued successfully? While patrolling the mountain, a forest ranger suddenly gets ambushed by an arrow. He quickly grabs his shotgun and fires frantically, then quickly removes his bright jacket, hiding behind a tree to spot his attacker's position. Not seeing any enemies, he barely catches his breath. John quickly snaps the arrow in half, hurriedly gets up and runs into the forest. The killer in camouflage doesn't pursue him, as if deliberately letting the man go. John hasn't gone far when he discovers a pickup truck parked in the woods, realizing this might be the killer's vehicle. To help with future investigation, John uses his keys to scratch a mark on the truck bed. After returning home, John immediately pulls out the arrowhead, then heats a needle and, enduring intense pain, stitches his wound. Finally, he takes a swig of alcohol, spitting it onto the wound to disinfect it. After treating his wound, John goes to the monitoring room, planning to check the situation in the forest. But what he sees astonishes him. A girl is being chased by the killer. John quickly gets up, grabs a bucket of paint from the storage, then heads into the forest to rescue the girl. Little does he know, his actions are spotted by the hidden killer. Having confirmed the killer's position, John quickly takes out the paint from his bag. The exposed killer flees in panic. John quickly raises his shotgun and fires. Seeing the killer run far away, he doesn't pursue. Finding the girl is now most important. After searching for who knows how long, John discovers the unconscious girl by the river. Finding she's still breathing, he quickly carries her back home. But due to his shoulder injury, John can't move quickly until late at night. They haven't left the forest. As it gets darker, John has no choice but to place the girl on the ground, then turns on his flashlight. After feeling around on the ground, he unexpectedly opens a hidden door. It's an abandoned trap. He plans to hide there temporarily, but when John turns back to wake the girl, he suddenly finds she's gone. John quickly explains he's not a bad person. Seeing he has no ill intentions, the girl finally feels safe to enter the cellar. Worried she might catch cold, John takes off his socks for her to wear, and so they spend the night in the cellar. The next day, John carries the girl on his back and sets off again. But being injured, after walking a short distance, he must stop to rest. Seeing the girl's emotions have stabilized, John pulls out a missing person flyer to show her. It turns out John has a daughter. 5 years ago, when he went to buy alcohol and came back, his daughter mysteriously disappeared from the car. Since then, he's been searching every day, yet never found any trace of his daughter. After a day of traveling, John finally brings the girl home. Will they be able to catch the killer? The wealthy man is terrified to discover the painting is crooked. Suddenly a shadow passes behind him. The rich man hears a sound and goes out to check. However, he finds nothing unusual. Little does he know, a thief is curled up on the ground trembling. The poor thief hasn't stolen anything, yet accidentally discovered the house's secret. Not long ago, the wealthy man was invited out by a friend, but as soon as he left, the thief sneaked into his home. He first hid in the surveillance blind spot and connected to the rich man's Wi-Fi, then used software to disable the wireless network, easily shutting down the cameras in the wealthy man's house. So the man quickly entered the room, ready to burglarize the mansion. But just as he took down the wall painting, strange noises came from the basement. The thief decided to go check. It was just a fan hitting a lamp. The man finally relaxed, but soon discovered many props here and numerous eerie photographs. Their content left the thief confused. Just as he panicked and was about to pick up the photos, he noticed a faint light under the cabinet. The thief hurried forward to check. Sure enough, something was wrong with the cabinet. He opened the latch and pulled it open, then peered through the peephole. What he saw inside terrified him, because he saw a man imprisoned within. This sight filled the thief with fear. After brief hesitation, he decided to call the police. The next day, police quickly knocked on the wealthy man's door. However, after a thorough search, they found nothing unusual, so the police had to apologize and leave. The rich man returned to his room, looking at the crooked painting. He was certain someone had broken in last night, but what the wealthy man didn't know, the thief had already snuck back into his house, hiding in the basement cabinet, preparing to rescue the person inside. While the rich man wasn't paying attention, the man took a hammer from the wall, rushing quickly into the basement. The wealthy man saw the thief breaking into his home. Without hesitation, knocked him unconscious and cruelly killed the thief. The man's mother became worried when he didn't return home, so she decided to report to the police. However, while the police were taking notes, the son's friend seemed to be deliberately hiding something. Seeing police were present, the mother said nothing more. In fact, the friend knew where the man had gone, because the man had mentioned he was going sneaking to the wealthy man's house to find the man. The friend drove to the rich man's house late at night, then stole an envelope from outside the door, secretly placing it in the man's drawer to make the man's mother suspect the wealthy man. This trick indeed worked. Upon seeing the rich man's envelope, the mother quickly handed it to the police. Police soon returned to the wealthy man's house. They went to the basement to search. This time, the female police chief noticed a hidden door. The wealthy man had no choice but to open the secret chamber. Yet there was nothing inside. But the female chief still found an issue. The door could only be viewed from outside. From inside, one couldn't see outside. The rich man explained workers installed it backwards, but the female chief didn't believe him at all. However, the wealthy man directly threatened her. The female chief angrily arrested him, but this fell into the wealthy man's trap, because this way the police would stop investigating. However, through his extensive connections, the wealthy man was quickly released from the police station by a senior officer. Can the mother avenge her son? The man slid down the ropeway excitedly. Unexpectedly, the safety rope was cracking. He looked as if he was enjoying it, until he was halfway through the slide. The man then noticed something was wrong. He quickly grabbed the cable